Hello and welcome to Past Your Bedtime. My name's Bev. What does it mean to be a farmer? It sounds like a simple job title, and of course distilled down to the act of growing crops or raising livestock for either its produce or its carcass, it is. Farming seems, however, to be unique among jobs, insofar as it defines that person's very being. I've read a few articles over the past year as I get to grips with the subject, and sometimes will see a piece fed to me by the internet's algorithm that argues the point that farmers need to do without subsidies, and that no other business relies on handouts to make ends meet. The very word subsidy is tainted with derision by some who argue that if you can't make the farm operation profitable, you obviously can't run a business. I suspect I barely need to comment on this, but it smacks of ignorance. And like many other industries, unless you get everyone around the table to discuss things, there's a risk that policy and regulation is designed with flaws, gaps, and worse still, crippling costs and increased burdens on those tasked with providing our daily bread, so to speak. So when you've spent your life in the act of doing actual farm work, when it's been handed down to you, when you've pitted your wits against a stubborn bull, a reckless sheep, or a crop failure and all that entails, taking yourself away from the farm and involving yourself at the sharp end of policy making can feel a bit, well, less than. My guest today found himself at that juncture after a life-changing conversation with a friend. Martin Williams, a fourth-generation farmer in Herefordshire, now finds himself frequently in London, rubbing shoulders with those who would seek to shape our agricultural policy. Thankfully, he also gets them to visit his farm and encourages them to see how things are on the ground. Travelling in recent months has also opened his eyes to the art of the possible when it comes to many aspects of farming, including specifically water management. His affable nature and depth of knowledge gets people around the table, and it's possibly why our conversation was one of the longest I've recorded. Not that you'll hear it all here. Some of his tales are on a need-to-know only basis. Martin is and always will be a farmer. He's simply ploughing a different field these days. You joined the conversation 20 minutes in, when I eventually got to ask him what he'd been up to that morning.
My day's been quite strange, actually. I woke up this morning, several phone calls before 8 o'clock. I've subsequently had an influencer come round and drive a Land Rover Octa and try and skid round some grass. And so I've been out in the field watching a drone do that. And yeah, now I've come to see you. So yeah, it's not your usual Monday morning, perhaps on a farm.
Have you done any farming today, this week?
No, I haven't done much farming. Although Saturday I was doing some spraying because it's supposed to rain tomorrow. And I thought I'll get that done on Saturday afternoon. Coming home Saturday night to watch the Hawkston Choir on Britain's Got Talent. The air conditioning belt broke on the tractor. It spun around the fan. It broke the wiring on the fan, which upset the CAN bus. And so I ended up standing in the middle of the road trying to start a tractor with a spanner. So yeah, this morning was a lot less stressful than Saturday night. So unfortunately, I missed the Hawkston Choir.
Oh, well, I don't watch that, but I did see some headlines on it yesterday morning.
But another thing that happened this morning, as a guy keeps a lorry at my yard, he turned up, he'd been to market, come back to park his lorry up, and we were talking about the beef price and the fact that the talk around the markets cafe this morning was that a boatload of Australian beef had come into the UK and it would depress the price of the UK product. I don't know if that's actually true, but that was the cafe chat. And so, my morning has been, air conditioning belts, influencers and beef. So there you go. Yeah.
Pick the bones out of that.
Yeah, pick the bones out of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So tell me, how did you get started in farming then? Which generation farmer are you?
Oh, I'm probably a fourth one. My grandfather was brought to this farm in 1929 by his dad when everybody thought it was rubbish in Wales and they thought it was easier in Herefordshire. Farms came available and so they came down here. And so, I'm fourth generation here, I suppose. Yeah, it was a dairy farm. It was all sort of half tenanted, half owned by the church commissioners and all sorts of things. And I grew up on a dairy farm, really, a dairy farm with a little bit of sugar beet, some sheep and some cattle, proper little family farm in Herefordshire. Over time, in the 70s, I used to bottle milk and stand in the dairy bucket, churning milk into the dairy and then dipping a jug in there. It was ultra non-hygienic. We used to strain it through a piece of muslin in a tin can, which I've still got. I've still got a great big container full of milk bottle tops if anybody wants them. And we used to have a milk round. My grandmother used to drive a horse and trap. And then we ended up, the final milk float we had was a Ford Cortina. And it was a blue Ford Cortina. Unfortunately, my grandfather wasn't very good with the crates. He put one in there one summer's afternoon and broke the crate, dropped the bottles and spilt the milk all through the back seats. You could not physically sit in the car for the smell. So I think that was the turning point for our milk round. The car went, the cows went, and then we turned into a beef farm. And subsequently, it suckler cows then for some time. I gave up suckler cows in around 2009-10 with a pressure of TB. Actually, I lost over 100 animals just before Christmas, which was not ideal. And it just felt untenable, not just from the TB, but from the numbers. We used FHDS scheme back in the 80s to put up some sheds. The numbers of cattle that we were keeping, it just didn't feel like it was enough to make good money at that point. And it's a numbers game, isn't it? You need more and more numbers. And we weren't at that stage. And so I thought this job, keeping a suckler cow, then I used to think cost me £1 a day. Now, as I did some sums actually with my neighbour last week on his, he still got some. And I thought £365 a year would have kept a suckler cow in 2010. He's now AHDB figures, and they're saying it's £674 a year to keep that suckler cow. So I'm glad I got rid of the damn things. But beef has gone through a funny period since, where it's been not worth a lot. It wasn't worth the ground it stood on, to being worth a fortune in this last couple of years. And so the ebbs and flows of farming, you give something up because you think it's not worth it, and then next minute someone's making £1. And I think that's probably what goes through a lot of farmers' heads when they come to deciding on what they want to do and what they don't want to do. They're afraid to give anything up in case someone else makes £1 out of it. And I'm guilty of that. I turned that then into an arably based business. So did lots of sort of taking land here, there and everywhere, growing corn because I like toys, and all over the place doing that sort of thing, taking bits of land, doing other people's work, bits of contracting. And then a friend of mine, my best friend actually, in 2020, just before COVID, he contracted esophagus cancer and went for an operation at the beginning of March. Just before that, he went for the op. We went to watch the rugby down in Cardiff. I took him for a meal, just the two of us, and we went through chatting about life and wills and what to do if something happened to him. And I said, okay, we've done all the nasty things. What would you change in your life if we get you through this? Unfortunately, we didn't get him through it. But unfortunately, he also threw the story back at me and said, well, what are you going to change, after telling me what he would? And so everything that I mess about with now, with advocacy and spending time doing off-farm things to do with agriculture, stems back really to that conversation with him and trying to do things. I've got no children, and so I'm getting old. I look old. And so therefore, what can I do to make... I know, it's dreadful, isn't it? Oh, did they really? Oh, I'm so sorry. I know, it's such a big number. Yeah, it takes 2 puffs to get the candles out now.
I'm not far behind you.
Are you really? Oh, I know. It's a classic age. It's a classic age. Yeah. I think we had all the best music and we had all the best fun because we didn't have mobile phones when we were kids.
That's true.
Yeah. So life's changed. I've done lots of different things within ag. Had some sheep and had some cows and had some corn and grew a few spuds. and now grassland, lots of SFI because I enjoy SFI. That's very good. Thank you very much. And maize, fodder beet, grassland, making hay that goes into Wales, bringing sheep from Wales come and have a lie down here because it's warmer here than it is in Wales, and sell hay off the farm, sell grass, all those sorts of things, and have cattle on bed and breakfast in the winter. Got a bit of solar on the farm, so yeah, we like a bit of solar, don't we? Not on the ground, on the roofs. Yeah, and some rentals, some industrial rentals, that sort of thing. But it's made life easier than racing around the fields in a tractor, 24 hours a day.
The variety
It's a little bit more.
Life.
It is actually, absolutely.
How many acres are you farming?
It's about 500 acres now, so it's minimal to what it was, and so relatively simple. I used to go out, like 100 phone calls a day during the summer with people. Can you, will you, can you, have you? Whereas now, goodness me, it feels relatively peaceful. Now my phone calls are mostly about politics or mostly about bigger things than me, which is quite nice. I quite enjoy that.
And so tell me about the work that you're doing with DEFRA then.
Okay, well, I was a monitor farmer in 2017 to 20 with my best friend, who I mentioned earlier. And that led me into doing sort of external things on farm and knowing a bit more about perhaps what was going on in the background of farming rather than sitting on a tractor looking at a windscreen. And then in 2020, 21, I live next to the River Wye in Herefordshire. And so the River Wye was under such pressure from NGOs and the press in particular, talking about the dire state of the Wye, and the chickens were killing everything, and you couldn't swim in the river, all that sort of thing. And I felt it wasn't really a fair comment or fair commentary. And so a friend of mine, Kate Adams, she runs a thing called Herefordshire Rural Hub. And we had a chat in July of that year, and I said, look, the farming rules for water had come out, or they'd been out since 2018, just nobody had noticed. And so in this 2020-21 period, it just seemed to all come to a head. And I said, we need to do something perhaps that can enable farmers to understand what's going on locally so that they're not feeling this purgatory of social media and the press. So we organized a meeting on a Thursday night. We said, okay, we'll do the meeting next week. Thursday night, we had a chat. We had the meeting on the Tuesday, I think it was, and we had to limit the numbers of people to come because it was such a hot topic. And we held two of those meetings. From that meeting, really, and the interest within it, I sort of put my head above the parapet and said, okay, we'll try and do better as farming. We'll see what we can do to enable farmers to do better, see what we can do to stand up for farming within that space. And that's led to MPs coming to see me, and Rebecca Powell was the first one, and then met with Therese Coffey, seen plenty of sort of ministry type people that have been out. Emma Hardy came out last year, was it? No, 12 months ago. And so we've met lots of politicians doing that. And that's led to, alongside the work that I've done in a thing called Farm Herefordshire, which again is peer-to-peer learning, bringing NFU, CLA, EA, Herefordshire Meadows, the council, every stakeholder together, put their bags outside the room and then discuss how can we improve farmers' awareness, how can we improve the nutrition and things that go on in the Wye. That has led me to being asked to be in DEFRA on the nutrient committee that decides the regulations, which is great, which has led to other things within water. I'm very keen on water and nutrition and bits and bobs around that. And so the one thing has led to another. It's a bit like being invited to a party, isn't it? If you say no, you don't go, then you don't get invited to the next one. If you go to the party, you end up invited to someone else's party, and you're all of a sudden your mantelpiece is full. And it's a bit like that. The more you say yes, the more that you end up doing things. And that's where I've ended up, really. Yeah, it's quite a strange thing, but I'm very, very lucky.
I was interested to see your piece online when you went out to Nevada and California. Would that have been earlier this year?
It was, yeah.
And was that
with the express goal of looking at water management, or was that just that?
No, it was such a random thing. We were invited to go to, it was Con Expo, which is a construction event in Las Vegas. And so Merlo kindly asked us to go and have a look at what goes on there. It's a huge event in an exhibition center in Vegas. So Vegas itself, I've never been there before. Wow, it's like Blackpool on speed, but it's hot. And so went to Vegas. We had a couple of days in there. I didn't watch Yellowstone until about 2 years after it started. I thought, well, while we're there, do you think we can go up through Utah into Yellowstone and go and see Montana? Anyway, Ollie and I went. We packed our bags and got there. Well, we got to Vegas, and of course it was about 85 degrees in the shade. It was boiling hot. We got a bag full of thin clothes and bits and bobs. We sat in the car a couple of days after looking at the expo and decided, where should we go? Should we go to Montana? And we looked at the weather. Well, Montana in March was something like -10 at night. And we said, hang on, we've packed the wrong clothes. So what should we do? Where should we go that's warmer? So I said, why don't we go down to Hoover Dam and follow the river, the Colorado River, down to Mexico. And so that's what we did. So we went down, we got in a car, we went to the Hoover Dam, which was like the start-off point. Absolutely fantastic trip. If ever you get the chance to go, it is incredible. It's not as far as you'd imagine, but you see a lot of desert. So wandering down there, a couple of stats for you. We love a stat.
Yeah.
Apparently Nevada, as a state, is twice the land area of England. Yeah. And it holds about 3.3 million people, the majority of which all live in Vegas. It is unbelievably sparse. There is nothing in it at all. And so we spent hours driving through rocks and bits of dirt on a road to nowhere on these lovely road trips. We went to look at Lake Mead, which feeds Hoover Dam, which was very, very low at the time because they'd had no snow in Wyoming, I believe, where the snow melt comes from.
The Rockies.
And so the Lake Mead and Hoover Dam was built over 100 years ago to supply those desert states with water. It was a collaboration job, fantastically forward thinking. Lake Mead itself, 600 miles around it, just to feed the hydroelectric and feed the dam. It's just colossal. Please Google it. It's really, really cool. So we went from Hoover Dam, like two boys in shorts, wandering along there, looking at that. And then we followed it all the way down to the Mexican border to look at Trump's wall, which is actually Trump's steel picket fence. It's about 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall. It's a picket fence. But at the bottom of the California, where the river meets Mexico, the river doesn't actually very often reach the sea, because as we stood next to near Mexicola in the bottom of California, there's a concrete aqueduct that brings the water out of the river into the Central Valley in the bottom of California to feed the flood irrigation, to feed the agriculture, which for me, living in the River Wye, looking at the pressure that farming is under from environmental bodies, which is absolutely understandable, and from the pressure from non-obstruction, the pressure we've got on water, even though we live in this lovely maritime climate, I found it astonishing that we were competing technically with a country that would use water down to bare stones in that manner. And so we drove then back up through that Central Valley up through feedlots and lucerne and wheat and whatever else they were growing in amongst it, and drove up to Los Angeles and then back to Vegas. But on the trip home, all the time I kept thinking, how on earth does what I've seen relate to something positive at home? And it made me think of water use and perhaps water marking of food. And so I'm quite keen, and I've had meetings in London with DEFRA around trying to create a watermark for food to show that the use of our maritime climate has a benefit. The use of our maritime climate is beneficial to our food production in an environmental manner. The fact that we're efficient and not cruel, or not as cruel. NGOs are shouting at the radio, you are cruel, but we're not as draconian in our water use as many other countries are. And the benefit of this maritime climate, I think we're missing a trick, because it is such the envy of the world, I would say. I know we moan about the weather and we talk about the weather, but
we're blessed. We're blessed with
it. We are blessed with it.
We just can't hang on to it.
Absolutely.
We just let it evaporate and run off.
Exactly. So it's a management issue rather than a shortage issue.
Yeah.
You know, if we were sitting in Nevada now having this conversation where it hadn't rained for 7 months, it's a different conversation.
They'd laugh at us.
I know they would. They would. Our dog bowls are half full. You know, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
So that trip was superb for learning lots of things.
I have done a similar trip, and I seemed to, so I've been around Arizona. I did go to Montana, different trip, different time of the year. But that area around Grand Canyon and Lake Mead, I seem to remember being told that the Native Americans did the water channeling, and I think in Phoenix, Arizona, in particular, they were responsible almost for that mapping of the aqueducts originally.
Yes, they were. It's quite a story, you know. If anybody's listening, want to Google it. It is unbelievable how they've done what they've done there, because the place would be uninhabitable without water. And I took some photographs of the levels. The lake was way down when we went, and that was in March. They were still waiting for the snow, and the snow, I think, had just fallen in Wyoming. But that water is such a crucial thing there.
It's precious.
It's so precious, so precious.
And yet they still are able to keep the lawns in front of the fancy hotels on the Strip green, much to the local population's dismay. But they must be managing it somehow. So they're not creating rain or rainwater anywhere, are they?
No, there's nothing to create, is there? There's nothing at all. It's a passing fancy of water there.
I do find that
rather than falls.
I do find it funny because I've been out to the States a lot when I was younger, and we're quick to criticise the Yanks for many reasons, and many of them very justified. But what I found in all walks of life, when they have something that's precious, they're very good at looking after it. So what limited history they've got, they're really good at looking after and protecting. Yeah,
they learn quick. Whereas, unfortunately, I think we're victims of lazy Victoriana. We've got Victorian drains, Victorian water pipes that we've lived off for 100 odd years that we haven't really thought of investing too much. Because we feel water is plentiful, or damn thing's a nuisance when it's in your welly. But I think we've got the opportunity to be really, really cool with water if we were so minded. Really good. And we've got all the tools to do it. We haven't got to desalinate the sea to do it. We've got the water. It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's fascinating. So that informs your discussions, that you're able to educate those that matter in DEFRA as to opening up their eyes about different ways of doing things.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic example of the reasons we have benefits, and it's a fantastic example of an added value of our maritime climate. Who knew we'd have the best weather in the world when we've got issues with your climate? I know we get hot spells, I know we get wet spells, but my goodness, if we just had hot, it wouldn't be quite so clever, would it? We wouldn't be growing anything at all. So I think, we can learn lessons from around the world and see different people in different environments and come home and think, well, how can we use that? How can we advantage UK production? How can we advantage UK farms by levering some of that asset? And it happens, lots of different things, aren't there? There's lots of people we were lucky enough to go to Australia last year, and we went to visit a feedlot met a guy who ran these feedlots. I think 70,000 cattle on this feedlot in Queensland. Quite incredible. And we drove what felt like 50 years to get to this place, but when you look at it on the map, you could see it under a drawing pin in Australia. The size of the place is just phenomenal. Saw this feedlot, which was a very neat feedlot where animals were fed within 10 minutes of yesterday. The efficiency was just off the scale, really, but it wasn't very photogenic. Whereas I would say you wouldn't find many tourists going there to take pictures because it was pretty.
Yeah.
Whereas you come here and the story is totally different. You've got people from all over the world come here to look at the Cotswolds, to look at the Yorkshire Dales, to look at the Welsh Hills, to look at the Scottish glens, we've got a lot to offer in natural capital, which other places don't have. And it's how do you put a value on that?
Is that factory farming out there, though, that you went to see, really, with that head of cattle?
Oh, yeah. It was a fascinating thing. I mean, the guys who ran the feedlot, they didn't really own all of the cattle. There was investment money that in the cattle. The feedlot was run on a pence per kilo basis. So they were sort of trading feed in, doing it as efficiently as possible and trading feed out. They're living on the margin. But the scale of it was just phenomenal. We stood on top of the guy's feed mill, which had a gantry, 30 foot up, looked out across this field and he said, yeah, there's 1,000 acres in that field. And it looked like a paddock just in front of this feedlot. The scale is just, it's a job to get your head around, really. But the product, I would hesitate to say, is very good. Very uniform animals. They had vets on site. They had people checking water troughs all day, making sure the administration of medicine was brilliant. The record keeping was astonishing. Everything was live tracked. Everything was on his phone, on a mobile. He knew as soon as something was fed, it was on his phone. He knew the time, the mix. We worry about things like red tractor in paperwork and bookkeeping. I think there's a lot of work to be done in record keeping to make that real time. No reason why it can't be real time. If we can send a rocket around the moon, I'm sure we can keep some records a bit better than we do than a red and green pen the day before an inspection. We could learn a lot from things around the world. Yes, do we want to see feedlots everywhere? I'd say we're probably in a society that wouldn't like that too much.
And we'd struggle for the space, wouldn't we?
Yeah, possibly, but I don't think people would like to think of the English pastoral view of the feedlot. However, it's damned efficient. And if we're not going to do that, then where else is the value in what we're doing?
Because just as relevant.
Value in difference.
Yeah, it's just as relevant for the hill farmers, though, isn't it? Where you've got the sort of terrain where you can't survey it visually in one go. So tracking animals, across the moors or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just as relevant to use that same technology.
Yeah, well, I'm sure GPS covers on cattle and whether the price will ever come down enough to just use it on sheep, I don't know. But hill farmers living on hefted sheep, where they know their way around and they need the family brains to wander around to know where the sheep are going. Equally, tech is going to be fantastic. But whether we'll be allowed to be doing stuff on those hills, will people come in to suggest that we shouldn't be putting livestock on hills? It's already happening in Dartmoor, where they're looking to reduce the stocking on Dartmoor because it's deemed that it's unhealthy for Dartmoor.
Yeah, whether that's right so it's another battle on a different front.
It's another battle. Yeah, there are battles everywhere, aren't there? Everyone's competing for land, and farmers are not necessarily at the top of the food chain, unfortunately.
True. So any other trips planned for this year?
This year, not so many abroad trips, though. I think locally, lots of shows now coming up at show season. Yeah. I think it's cereals next week at Clarkson's, which will be entertaining in lots of ways. One, to see if the crop chemical companies and the seed companies can grow plots on brashy soil in the middle of the Cotswolds. It'll be interesting to see how they survive
Charlie was
The
talking it up
one.
a few weeks ago, wasn't he? He was saying how it's looking pretty good, Charlie Island, probably about a
Yeah.
month ago now, I think.
I would imagine Charlie's been out with his hose pipe a bit. I can see him out with his sprinkler of an evening,
He's
trying to
suggesting
get
that
those
that
crops
wasn't
to go.
genuine.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, won't it? And I dare say, hopefully, a lot of people will go to that. Hopefully, we can all get in and out, because I think the road network there is quite an interesting
Well,
system.
I'm planning on going next days, and I haven't been there before. And I'm hoping, because it's a trade event rather than a, sort of family day out event, that it's not going to be as mad as some of the other unplanned traffic volumes that they've had. But surely they've got that sorted now, haven't they? The traffic management.
Well,
No.
we'll see. Won't
Oh,
we?
well, okay.
I've never been.
I'll take us
actually
last.
I've never been into Clarkson's farm shop, but I've driven past it, and it wasn't a very wide road. It's
No.
and so we'll see how they get on. But hopefully, it's a success. I think it would be great. It would be great for a couple of reasons, really. One is that Clarkson's farm is on, I think, this next few days. Comes out
That's
again,
right, yeah.
Series 5, and then it'll have some PR work for that, won't it? And if it's filmed at Serials this year, then next year when it's back at Andrew Ward's, Clarkson's farm will come out this time next year, perhaps, and maybe
Yeah.
Serials will get a fillip from being on the telly next year as well. So from a PR point of view, I see it being great. From a trade point of view, there might be a lot of people that watch Clarkson's farm trying to go to Serials, expecting to see Jeremy, and being very disappointed by looking at variety trials and sprayers. Who knows?
Yeah, well,
Who knows?
I'm not going for any fangirling moment at all.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure. If I should bump into him and or get the microphone, I might ask him a question, which may or may not involve asking him to be on this podcast. But no, I'm not there for that. I really am there to see some other people. I mean, there's half a dozen people who I've interviewed now who will be there. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in the flesh and your good self. Now I know you'll be there.
The past your bedtime reunion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so
Well, Clark, there's a sign. I don't know if you've ever been to Jeremy's pub. I stopped there on the way back from London one night for a wee, and I felt so guilty that I thought I'd better get a drink while I'm there rather than just use his loo. And so I walked into the bar and obviously went and did whatever I needed to do. Then I went to the bar and I said, "Oh, can I have an orange juice?" "No, we don't do orange juice." "Okay. Could I have well, I think what else I asked for. I said, "Well, is it easier for me to ask what I can have?" And she said, "You can have some apple juice and a bag of crisps." Right. So that's what I had. That was my token gesture. But on the wall there's a sign in there. I don't know if anybody's been in there. And it says, "No, we don't know where he is. No, we don't know if he's coming in. And no, please don't ask." And I thought that was such a cool thing to have written on the wall in your pub.
Yeah.
You know you're in his pub when you've got that on the wall, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's straight out of his gag book.
Yeah.
No, it's I'm looking forward to it. I haven't, as I say, I haven't been to the farm shop or the farm. Well, I'm a long way from there now. It's going to be a good 4.5 hour drive, should be. So, but excited nonetheless. I love a good day out. Now the show season started. It's my season, if you like, starts with Tractor Fest, which is next weekend or this weekend, coming all the old vintage tractors and that. So I'll get to pick out that.
Well, then I'm going to Tractor Fest in Dorset this next weekend. It's on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And I was talking about it in the house last night, and there's one at Nurse or near
There's
Newby.
Newby Hall. Yeah. So it's just outside York, near Boroughbridge.
Well, there must be two on the same weekend.
That would
One
be weird,
south
wouldn't
and one
it?
north.
Silly. But then I suppose there's plenty of vintage tractors to go round, right? I'm imagining. You wouldn't want to drive them up here from Dorset.
Well, at least it'll get them off the road. They're always on the road doing tractor runs.
There was one yesterday, and I'm a bit too far back from the road that goes through Kildale to have got any decent footage, but you could hear them a mile off. There must have been probably 40 went down the road yesterday afternoon, and it does.
It's quite a
it is.
pastime now, isn't it?
It's a
The tractor
lovely
run pastime.
sight, though. It really is. They're great bits of heritage. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that and all the weird and wonderful tractors. And
Is there country or western and things on at night, or what's on at night?
no, oh, hang on, I'm saying no. I don't do the overnight thing, but my neighbours camped out last year. Was there music? I think there was music, actually. I think you're right.
Yeah,
it's not obvious.
It's not like
it's not a deliberate festival. It's not like film festival or anything. But I think there is live music to a point.
Yeah.
Why you?
The one in Dorset, I think, is proper country and western, and
is it?
Yeah, it's like tribute act nights. Yeah,
you don't do proper country and western in this country now. Come on.
Oh well. When we're going to Vegas, we went to Vegas and went into a bar there. I can't remember the name of it. And in there, on the wall outside, it said line dancing classes 6 till 7. We thought, oh, we'll have a go at that. That looks quite fun. And so wandered in there expecting to see people like us learning how to line dance. But it's not like that at all. It's almost like some social event. These people are absolute committed line dancers who are so good. We couldn't believe it. It's like date night on line dancing. We daren't even daren't even step up there to have a hoedown.
Your proper intro into it is to do two-stepping. And if you can two-step, which is really easy, then you'll get a gal and just offer to two-step her around the dance hall, and you'll be made up for the night.
Really?
You get a little tip, yeah.
So farmers dating, do the two-step. That's the way to get a gal.
Not line dancing. Line dancing is a solo sport.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. It was very good, but very intricate. They all seem to know everything about all these different things. I mean, I can just about do Taylor Swift, what's it called? The Fate of Ophelia. I can do that, but I'm not very good at the line dancing.
Over my head, that one. So, yeah. Are you grateful to your friend for the choices he's made you think about?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And it was almost, I think it's quite, when you look at, it's very difficult, isn't it? If you consider farming mental health is a tough gig. And personally, I think peer pressure will probably lose more lives than most worries, because that pride in agriculture and that pride in being a farmer, growing a crop, that identity of being a farmer is such a powerful thing. If you went round a hospital ward and there were 10 people lying in the bed and you asked the first 9 what they did and they weren't farmers, they'd probably suggest they were retired. If you got to the farmer, he would still be a farmer, even if he's 90. And so that identity plays on people. So being given permission by a friend or suggestion that doing something slightly different isn't detrimental, it is a good idea, I think is so powerful. And so that for me is something I'll always carry with me. I find it a bit emotional, actually. And I wish people would understand that you don't need permission. If you feel you want to do something slightly different, then take that opportunity. And I've been very lucky in the opportunities that I've been offered and given, but it's not that I'm not a farmer. I'm still farming.
You're still a farmer. You're still a farmer.
I've still got that identity. Honestly, I have. However, by taking a step back, I think farming would do well for doing that a bit more often, perhaps, and instead of carrying that angst, because I'd hate to see the stats on losses in farming. It just seems such a shame. And maybe by stepping back, it gives you the opportunity to see a wider picture and see what can be done. And so I'm grateful to him. And that's why I bring it up. You know, if someone asks me, why do you do what you do? It will always come back to that conversation. And I will always remember him looking at me across the table.
That's a blessing. And that's a nice way to finish up the chat with you. Martin, it's been absolutely a hoot. Probably got a bit more that's going to end up on the cutting room floor. It's hopefully
Yes, there's a director's cut. There's a director's cut.
there is, absolutely. There may well be an outtakes reel. You just don't know, do you?
No, you don't.
But it's lovely to meet you. And I will hopefully see you again. I'm looking at my wall planner. See you a week on Wednesday, perhaps down at Diddley.
I will.
Are you going to be just wafting about with your mate?
I'll be wafting about. Yeah, we're going to do lots of wafting about. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to see while I'm there, a couple of events. So yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing people there. You know, farming does a day out very well, doesn't it? And so yeah, I'll come and find you in the crowd. But I've only seen you from the shoulders up. Yeah.
Well,
oh yes.
Hang on a minute.
Oh yeah.
See this. Now nobody else can see this.
Oh yes. If you're wondering what I'm looking at,
you can't miss me.
It's a past your bedtime gilet with the biggest font I've ever seen on the back.
I've got to tie my hair up there. You can't. I stupidly didn't get them to put the logo down lower, but yeah, getting into the merch.
No, well, thanks for letting me come on here, and
bless you. No, thank you. It's lovely to meet you, and we will see each other again soon.
Definitely. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. My thanks to Martin for a lovely chat, and also my thanks to Charlie Whitehouse, my guest last week, for introducing us. Well, by the time this airs, the cereals event at Diddley Squat will have been and gone. As Martin said, he's interested to see quite how well the trial crops will have performed on Clarkson's brashy soil. I had to look up the definition of brashy, and Google tells me it means loosely fragmented and rubbishy. It sounds a lot like me most days. And since we're talking about Clarkson's farm, I expect most of you will have already seen that Series 5 is out. I'm detecting a typically British backlash in the media because we never seem to be able to sustain our love for the underdog as soon as they succeed. I hope that's not the case, because if you read between the lines of all the made-for-TV stories, his influence is still undeniably positive as a champion of the farming sector. I'll be heading to cereals to soak up all there is to learn, as well as meet some of the terrific people who've supported me so far. And if I happen to see Jezza, well, perhaps I might ask him to record something for me. But for now, as always, if it is past your bedtime, then perhaps it's time to turn in. Until next time.